it's Chloe from Save the Pictorial. How's everybody doing today? Amazing, I hope. Here's another video from your older than average YouTuber here on YouTube. And we are building a palette. Yes, we are building the Natasha Denona YUCCA Palette. So if you want to see what from our collection we used to build it, the comparisons, some swatches, and how we got this eye look and what palettes we used, you're in the right place. And you know what you need to do? You need to keep on watching. Okay, let's build this palette. So Natasha Denona has decided to not sell in Sephora Canada anymore, which is very sad for the Natasha Denona stands out there. I do have two palettes. One will be showcased in here, and then the other is that little black and gray one that she put out, which I really, really enjoy. She generally has carmine in some of her eyeshadows, so it's not something that I try to make sure I don't buy any, but the one I do have that does have some in there, I got in a mystery box. So there we are. So even though I'm in a no-buy, I wouldn't be able to get this anyways because it looks like it's not going to be sold in Sephora Canada. So let's build the Natasha Denona YUCCA Palette. So it looks really, really good, and I had a fun time building it. It was a pretty easy build. There were a couple colors that I wasn't 100%, or that it took me a little bit more time, and may not be 100% exactly matching. Again, it's one of those things where swatches and photos sometimes look different, but we're going to see how it goes. So I'm just going to get my little list here of the colors that I picked, and then we are going to go from there. So the first palette that I have on the list here, and hopefully I can do this without dropping a whack of stuff, and I'm hoping to also be able to swatch it just on one arm, the set. Just one arm. We're going to try. We're not going to do the big old gaps that we're known for. All right, so the first one is the shade Scandalous, and this is from the Pat McGrath Rose Decadence. I don't have a lot of Pat McGrath. I think this is the only palette that I own. Oh, and I have some little shimmery things that I got years and years and years ago, but this is the palette here, and we do have a couple shades that we're going to be pulling out of here. The shade that we're going to be using, oh, and of course you need your little card to do that, so let me just pop that back on there, make sure I got it going the right way. Yes. So the first shade we are taking is Scandalous, so that is that shade right there. So I can take the nameplate back out, and we're going to give this a swatch. And when you look at the palette here, it looks kind of rose goldy, and then when you look at the swatch, depending on what skin tone you put it on, it kind of looks kind of goldy with a little bit of pink. So I thought this one was the best mix that I have. I don't have a lot of neutrally shimmery stuff. Most of the kind of more special shimmer shades I have are brighter colors, so I think those were a little bit, I had to dig through a few more palettes to find more in these kind of colors. But anyways, this is shade number 1. This is Scandalous from the Pat McGrath Rose Decadence, and it was this teeny little 9 penny thing here. I can't even remember how I got it. It might have been a gift, but I cannot remember anymore. I've had it for a long time. So number two, this is oh, so that was a new palette for the builds, I believe, and this is another new palette for the builds. I have a few that you will have seen before in other builds, but I got a whack of new ones in here, so that's pretty exciting. So this was a birthday gift that I received from Wilma Fingerdew. This is the Arttitude Cosmetics Maneater Untamed palette, and this is where we're grabbing shade number 2 from, and it is the shade called Forest, which is this shade here, and it is and again, if you look at the photo, it looks like greeny goldy specks in there, but this one looked like it would fit the bill. So it is this gorgeous shade here, and this is what we had for the second shade. And again, this is Forest from Arttitude Cosmetics, the Maneater palette. And then I mentioned that there was going to be a Natasha Denona palette in here, and that's what we're using for shade number 3, which is Lifetime, and it is from the Love palette. Okay, it's just a slippery little sucker because it's in this plasticky thing here, and we are using this shade right here called Lifetime. This was a strange color. Looking at it in here, it looked on the palette, a very gold, but a kind of a warm, like a, well, you'll see when I swatch it, what I mean, kind of gold with not orange, but peach, goldy peachy, and that's how it kind of looked like on the swatch. I will have some swatches at some point up as well. And there we go. So shade number 3 from the Natasha Denona Love Palette, and it's called A Lifetime. So that was the shade we used in there. Now, next up for number 4, so there's 15 shades in this palette, so we've just done the first 3, so now we're on to number 4, and this is a palette we've used a few times before. It is my favorite yellowy type palette, and this is a Lemonade from Midas Cosmetics, and the shade, and I think we've used this shade before, so this is where I can really tell there's certain colors that I liked, and I think that's why I like this color story, and it is the shade Bitter, which is this shade down here that we have as our number 4 shade. I'm gonna pop that there. Gonna give it a good swatch. There we go. Number 4, Bitter from the Lemonade palette, Midas Cosmetics. And this looks in the pan and the swatch is really close to this one. So I think this is a really good dupe here for that shade. So now we are on to shade number 5, which will complete the first row. So shade number 5 is from this little palette. I got this gifted as well. This is from P.Louise. This is the Your Tripping palette. They had the Money Shot palette, which is the big green one, which is one of my favorite palettes of all time. And then they had also released this little one, and none of these shades repeat if you were looking. And same thing too from the Worldly palette that I have. None of the greens in there are in this palette or in that other palette. And for shade number 5, we are taking Thrill Seeker, and that is this one here. In the Natasha Denona palette, I think it's called Camu. I think this one was probably one of the harder colors to find. So it looks very yellow in here, but it does have a kind of, you know, the citrine type color. So we're just gonna go take this, and then you'll see that there, and that is a number 5. And I think this one also looked pretty close to the swatches. And we're just gonna give it one more go. So there we go. That is from the P.Louise Your Trippin palette, Thrill Seeker. And we don't have to go far for the first shade on row number 2, number 6. It is also going to be from the same palette, and it is Jet Setter by P.Louise in the Your Trippin, and it's this shade right here. And then we're going to go and take that onto our finger, and then pop that right there, and we've got shade number 6, and that is Jet Setter from the Your Tripping palette. And I think this is pretty close to the swatches and the color story in there. This is a nice grungy palette with just some little nice pops of shimmer we've got going on here. So that will be the end of that palette for this. And then we're gonna go on to number 7. And this is from the Haunted Pumpkin from Give Me Glow Cosmetics. And number 7 is the shade Urban Legend. And it is this shimmery shade here. And it looks in the I want to say in the palette more silvery, but in the swatches it looked more like this one. And then this one, depending on how you turn it, can go from looks like from a brown to a gold, but this one looked like it really worked for number 7. So let's pop that there. And again, that is Urban Legend from Give Me Glow, the Haunted Pumpkin. So there we go. Yeah, so it swatches a bit lighter, and it does so as well in the swatches for the palette, which like I said, I should have running along the top here. So I think that's the only one I have from in here. So I'll just pop this over here. So then for number 8, we've got this cute little palette here. This is the Rebel Honey from Juvias Place, and we actually will have several shades in this one. If this had a number or name sheet in there, it is gone, but I'm just calling it number 4 because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the number 4 shade from the Rebel Honey palette, and it will be number 8 in this palette here. I'm trying to get these a little bit closer so I can try and get them all on one arm. A little bit more here. And this one looked a little bit darker in this palette than how it swatched, and it swatched pretty close, I think, to the swatches above. The photos, will they look as close? I don't know. So anyways, this is number 8, and yeah, there's no way I don't think I'm getting these all on one arm. So number 8, that is Juvia's Place Honey. So, and I think this is a palette we've not used before either. So next up, this is a palette we've used a few times. So this is the Glaminatrix Nocturnal palette, and we are going to be using the shade Fog for number 9. So that is the shade there. And then let's give it a nice swatch here. And again, this is number 9, so this is Fog. There we go, from the Glaminatrix palette Nocturnal. I love this palette. So there we go. So next up, we are back to Miss Pat McGrath for shade number 10. So again, it is the Rose Decadence palette, and it is the shade called Golden Honey, and it is this shade right here. Oh, there we go, it's a clean finger. So this is shade number 10. And there we go, Golden Honey. I will flip to this side, I think, because I swatch a little bit too big and they all don't fit in there, but closer than normal, so we will take it. So that is number 10, Golden Honey from the Pat McGrath Rose Decadence palette, which is this one here. I'm not sure if it's available anymore. I've had this one quite a while. I want to say a few years for sure. Alrighty, so this is a palette I don't know if we've used for swatches before, but I have shown on my palette. For shade number 11, it is the shade Curiouser, and this is coming from the Alice in Wonderland. This was my first ever Sigma palette. This was the first one where the color story really spoke to me. They did a lot of neutrals, they did little pops of color, but this was one of the more colorful ones and the one that spoke to me the most. Whoops! These little brushes, I should always remember to take them out. And the shade Curiouser is this shade right there. And oops, I'm swatching it. All right, so we're gonna go here, and like I said, we're gonna go to the other arm. So this is number 11, and this is Curiouser. And this is probably the darkest, yeah, this will for sure be the darkest shade in the Natasha Denona palette. And I think this matches up pretty good. So that is Curiouser from the Alice Sigma Beauty Alice in Wonderland collection. I really need to use that one some more because I really do like that palette. And the quality is really good. I may or may not have one in a giveaway soon. All right, not in Alice in Wonderland, but something from Sigma. Alrighty, so for number 12, we are back to the Juvias Place and the Rebel Honey. And again, because if it, like I said, had a name card, it's missing. So we're calling it shade number 1. And this will be the 12th shade in our 15 shade palette from Natasha Denona. So there we go, the Yucca palette. I really like the color. Isn't that really pretty? Yes, I dig that so much. So this is a really nice color story palette. So again, that was number 12. That was Juvia's Place from the Rebel Honey palette, and it was the first shade in the palette. And I think that's it for that one for this. And now we're gonna go back to the Arttitude Cosmetics for shade 13, and it is the shade called Endangered. So if we go in, and this palette is so beautiful. Look at it, it's so gorgeous. And this back, almost this whole, a good chunk of this palette kind of feels reminiscent of this Yucca palette here with the yellows and greens and oranges. So Endangered is this beautiful shade here, and this is the one we have for number 13. And wait to you see it if you haven't watched my video on it. Isn't that beautiful? I digs it. In the palette, it looked speckly, but the color when it was swatched looked a little bit darker than this, but I thought this was the closest one that I had in my palette. It's probably a little bit brighter. Yeah, but I really like that shade. And again, it is Endangered from the Arttitude Cosmetics Maneater palette for our 13th shade. Now for shade 14, we are going to be going into another favorite palette, and this is from Gourmande Girls, and this is the Spooked. We have several Halloween ones in here for this look, and it is the shade called Haunted, and it is this orangey shade right here. So that will be shade number 14. And there we go. And depending on the skin tone that you're looking at for the swatches, I think it is better for some than the others. So we are on our final shade, and we are going to go back one more time into the Arttitude Cosmetics and the Maneater Untamed. And the shade that we're using in here is the one called Nocturnal. And Nocturnal is this beautiful green here, and it's a matte shade, and this is the other darker shade in here, but it is not as dark. It doesn't feel as dark as that brown shade from the Alice in Wonderland, and that is shade number 14, but it does give you some depth in the greens there. And let me just clean off my fingers, and then here we go. Here are my 15 shades for the YUCCA palette for Natasha Denona. Alrighty, so I'm going to go take pictures of my swatches so we can do a comparison, and then we will do an eye look. I already did my base. I just saw a video where Laura Mercier was releasing this look like really stunning powder foundation, which I've been looking for a new one. I just wanted to pop in as I was going to wash this off. I was like, I think I said Laura Mercier, and then I said Laura Geller, and yeah, I saw a Laura Geller foundation. I thought it looked really good, that I love a powder foundation, and I've been looking for one, and then I remembered I had the Laura Mercier one, which I'm trying again, and I think looks really nice. So that might stop me from my temptation of wanting the Laura Geller one. All right, there we go. Let's get on to doing an eye look. Okay, so let's do an eye look. Let's prime, and off we go. So this looks like a very grungy, mustardy, greeny one. So I think that's the kind of look that we're gonna go for. I'm gonna try and use a few of the palettes that we haven't used for other looks before. So I was thinking maybe we can use the Alice in Wonderland for the really dark shade. Then we can use a little bit from the Maneater and maybe Haunted Pumpkin. We can go from there. Try and just use, because we've used the Lemonade one quite a few times. There's a lot of new shades in here. So there we go. We are primed and ready. So let's try something out. So yeah, we're going to, even though I love this palette, we are just going to put this one to the side because we've used it quite often before. Let's pop it somewhere. And then you do like this one. I haven't had really a chance to use that very much. So I think I'm going to stick to green. So let's do Maneater. I'm going to keep the Haunted Pumpkin out, and I'm going to keep this one out, and in case I want to darken, we'll keep that one out. So we're going to use those 4 palettes, I think is the plan. So maybe what I'm going to do on the outside of my eye, I'm going to take a little bit of a fluffy brush here. We're going to go into, it was Curiouser. So this was the darkest shade, and this was in the Sigma Alice in Wonderland, and we're just going to use that nicely and lightly on the outer edge. And since I did my face, I'm hoping for no fallout for this look. I know, sometimes I do it without my face on, and then sometimes I do it without, and usually without is better for the fact that if you do have fallout, it's easy to fix. But I was just felt like having a base on first. And then I guess the other thing about doing your eyes first, then you can match blushes and highlighters, but I try to keep it as neutral as I can and just using some stuff that I've been panning. So there we go. So we've built out on the outside just a little bit of the super dark, and I'm going to blend it up a little bit. And there we go. There. I think that looks good. So have any of you decided to get to the new Natasha Denona? I know she has a lot of massive fans. I think she's either a lover, or you don't use her at all, is what I've been seeing for the most part, but this palette looks really, really nice. Alrighty, so we used Curiouser from there. So now let's take the darkest green that's in this look here, and this we're going to use from the Maneater, and that was the shade, was it Nocturnal? So we're going to take that shade there, and then that's the next shade we're going to pop in. So from the Haunted one, it was that kind of darker shade of, what's my words here, of shimmer. And then we had some nice light greens from the P.Louise. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the darker green here. And then I'm going to go into a lighter shade of green from the P.Louise. And then we're going to use that shimmer, I think, from the Haunted Pumpkin. And just don't follow Natasha Denona a lot. I do, you know, it always pops up on new releases, so every once in a while something's like, ooh, but not too often. So that, like I said, that little black and gray was one I was really excited about. This one was very exciting as well. And the pink one that I had, I got that in a Beautylish bag. It was my first Beautylish bag, and I do quite like it. I hear the bigger palettes are the better quality, and some of the little ones. The little ones I think are hit and miss. The 5 pans. I think they're 5 pans. There's a lot of noise going on outside. But I hear that the more expensive Natasha Denona ones, the ones that are like 165 or something, or 175, are quality-wise the way to go. And then these smaller ones, like that, the Love palette I have, those can be hit and miss as well from what I hear. And since I only have the 2, I can't really comment on the really expensive one. But that little Love palette is nice. It's not one of my favorite palettes, but I don't dislike it. But like I said, I really like that gray and black one a lot. So I think that's kind of like of the 2 that I have, that's the one of hers that I like. If I'm wanting something black or gray, I take that one. But then that might even be slightly replaced from the Carnival 5 palette that I have. That has all the grays and blacks in there too. All right, so we blended that. I think we need a little bit more of that one from the Alice in Wonderland, so that shade Curiouser. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that. I used quite a fluffy brush, so I'm going to use the one that's in here. It has a fluffy end and then has a slightly more denser end, so I'm just going to use the denser end. So we're going to darken a little bit more. Okay, so now we want to do something a little brighter for the inside, and we're going to go into our little P.Louise here. And in the P.Louise we had, I'm opening the wrong way, that's why. So this one here, that was we had Thrill Seeker and Jet Setter. Thrill Seeker was definitely the lighter citrine color. And I think we're going to do that, even though we do love this grungier one, but I think a little bit the brighter goes more with that green there. So we're going to go into there. What kind of brush do I want to use? Oh, not the one that came with. Yeah, we're going to use something a little flatter, I think. Oh no, that has purple on it. I don't think we want to mix any purple. Next up on my list today is washing some brushes. So there we go. All right. So yeah, so we're going to go into the shade that was called Thrill Seeker right there, and we're going to use that for the front. Alrighty. So then I've got that lighter green there. Oh, it's really pretty, right? And then the 3 colors kind of blend really nicely in together. And then I'm going to go back into the darker green from the Untamed palette. I'm just going to take this little brush actually, because I just want to kind of get nicely in the middle. So I'm just going to take this little Morphe one and we're going to go back into Nocturnal. And then when I use this little brush, I can also do the bottom lash line as well. There we go, just to get a little bit of that green back in that I covered with the light. And then, all right, there we go. Really like this green color, it's so pretty. Okay, so I was looking at for, you know what, I'm just gonna go one more time to the Alice in Wonderland, and I'm gonna go back into Curiouser with this little brush here, because I just want to kind of go. All right, that's better. Okay, that makes me happier. Okay, so for shimmer, I was originally looking at the one here from the Haunted Pumpkin. I was thinking that one Urban Legend, but I think I changed my mind. Sorry. I think I am gonna go into the Arttitude, and we had two shimmers. We had Enchanted and we had Forest. So Enchanted and Forest. And I think I want to put Enchanted in front there. So that is what I've decided we're going to do. And another flat brush here. I do. So I'm going to make sure it's clean. It is this little angled brush. I'm going to go into Enchanted. I remembered spray. Look at me go. Gently over top the yellow here. I use my finger as well. I mean, this shimmer goes good both. Okay, so I'm going to use my little pinky. Gonna get in there, and then, oh, look at that. I mean, Arttitude, so gorgeous. I think in this last few months, I've been finding ones where I could do like my top 5 eyeshadow palettes of all time, I think. Definitely have a few here that I've just, there we go, that I've been really, really loving so much. And this is one of them. This one, the P.Louise Money Shot, my Carnival palette, my little Lemonade palette. All right, there we go. And I was liking my St. Angel Sinners. So many nice palettes. All right, there we go. I think that's really pretty. What do we think? Simple, pretty, but shiny, green, the way I like it. So there we go. So I think you can do some fun looks with this Yucca palette. So let's just finish off while we're here. I'm going to use some of this eyeliner that I hate. And yes, I've figured out how to work it, but I would never buy this one again. But I don't want to go on about it forever, always, every time I use it, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to put on my bottom lash line a little. No, not every formula can be a win. What can you do? Alrighty, and then we're going to use my favorite mascara. I'm sitting at home today, so I'm not going to wear any lashes. I don't think I have any lip stuff out here, but I just have a little, I love the Juvias Place lip balms that have the little bit of color. I think the next time if I ever do an order, I'm just going to go buy like a dozen of them and be like, well, that's all I want in my order, please. I just like they kind of use up really fast, but they smell good, they go on nice, make your lips feel amazing. You just get that little bit of color. I like it. Alrighty, there we go. That is our build of the Yucca palette from Natasha Denona. There we go. You can still see a little bit of the swatches. And there we go. There is our video. Building a palette, because we're on a no buy. And also you can kind of see the things you have in your collection. And when you look at this color story for this palette, it definitely screams me. And because it was easy enough, several of the colors I could have I could have, I've had in other palettes as well, so I could have picked other shades, I would say about 50% of them. So I do have a color story that I like, and that palette seemed to have them. If somebody sent me the Natasha Denona one and it didn't have any carmine in it, I would totally be up to having that one. But again, I decided to leave Sephora Canada, so I think Canada's a little mad right now. We rarely get angry, but that could do it. All right, here's a look again at the gorgeous palette that we are building. It is so pretty. Here are the swatches by different skin tones, but they are not in order of the palette. Here is the colors that I chose for my collection. I think I did a good job again. And here we are comparing the palette with the colors that I picked. I think I'm getting a handle of this palette build business. Alrighty, that's it for me. If you like this video, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and maybe even hit that notification bell. If not, that's okay. We can still be friends. We can still build palettes together, especially ones that are beautiful with greens. Alrighty, as always, behave, make good choices, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.